Okay, truth seekers, today we'll cover the controversial topic of the specific reasoning behind why Trump didn't pardon Edward Snowden or Julian Assange. Controversial topic and a very controversial source covering the controversial topic. Here's one of their top stories. Secret societies, harmless members only clubs are dire threats to democracy. I'll only use this article to provide the direct quotes by President Trump during his Candace Owen interview, where he discussed this subject matter. Quoting Trump, "You have two sides of it," Trump said. He described their separate situations as respectively a, quote, sort of a spy deal going on, and, quote, somebody that's exposing real corruption, but without indicating which description applied to which person, concluding only that he felt, quote, a little bit more strongly about one than the other. This article goes on to state, media reports earlier this year indicate Trump has been convinced by aides that an Assange or a Snowden pardon would upset Senate Republicans who are gearing up to vote in his impeachment trial at the time. So I don't have access to these media reports, but we look at this particular moment in time. This was December 22nd, 2021, for this article. My reason for doing this video is because I came across a recent episode of the No Agenda Show with Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak. This is the September 29, 2022 episode. There is a segment that begins at about an hour 31 minutes into the show, Glenn Greenwald on Snowden and Trump impeachment. So there are some statements made by Greenwald that I thought were interesting. I'll go ahead and play the considered segments for you directly. It's the third and fourth segment.
And that is the problem, is it was the Trump administration considering actively pardoning Snowden. I think it was one of Trump's more cowardly moves not to have done that. The reason he didn't was because the second impeachment trial was hanging over his head, and Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham made clear, and Mitch McConnell, if you pardon Snowden, we're going to vote for your own impeachment. But he didn't, and now the Biden administration, was a part of the Obama administration, is continuing this repressive attack on whistleblowers that led to Snowden not being able to come back to the United States in the first place.
Yep.
I had never heard that before, Glenn, that there was a threat from Rubio and Graham and some of the more hawkish pro-security state Republicans to potentially vote to convict Trump in that impeachment hearing over Snowden. Is there, just explain that a little bit more to me, because that's a new piece of information for me.
All right, so we got Lady Lindsay. Lady G, the man who said that Biden might be the very best person to have in the wake of J6.
Yeah, totally. He'll be maybe the best person to have, right? I mean, how bad can you get it with Joe Biden?
I can only hope that President Trump didn't cower to that man. I'll go ahead and play for you the second, even more interesting segment.
Yeah, so, obviously I was somebody who was working very actively, both publicly advocating, but also in private, doing everything I could to secure a pardon for both Assange and Snowden, Snowden being my source and Assange being someone I regard as heroic. And there was real movement inside the Trump administration to give particularly Snowden a pardon. They came much closer to Snowden than they did to Assange. And if you think about it, why would they have initiated an impeachment proceeding against a president who within a couple of weeks was on his way out? And the reason, Crystal, was that they were very afraid that on his way out, Trump was going to do a bunch of stuff, including not just giving pardons to Snowden and Assange, but also declassify all kinds of documents he had been threatening to declassify about the CIA, about the Kennedy assassination. And the only leverage they had against Trump doing what they considered crazy stuff on his way out was the second impeachment trial. And they explicitly communicated to Trump, multiple Republican kind of hawkish senators did, that if you do what we know you're thinking about doing, what Rand Paul and Matt Gaetz and others were encouraging him to do, which was pardon Snowden, that will severely jeopardize your chances of getting out of this impeachment trial with an acquittal. And that was the kind of sword of Damocles hanging over his head during that transition.
All right.
Does that relate to the documents that he then takes to Mar-a-Lago? Because there's some reporting that the documents that he took there were, related to Russiagate. They were things that, he had flirted with declassifying before, but didn't for whatever reason. Do you know if there's a connect there?
What I know for sure is that Trump was threatening to declassify all of those documents relating to Russiagate because...
What's with his language? Do you know if there was a connect there? What, a connection?
Because Trump believes, I think with a lot of validity, that there were crimes committed, or at least ethical transgressions committed during the 2016 election to create and manufacture Russiagate. It came out of the CIA. And I don't know exactly which documents he took. Nobody really knows exactly which documents he took, but it certainly seems to align with everything I knew at the time, which was that Trump wanted those documents public, had the power to declassify them, and now his defense is that he did.
Okay, so the part that really stuck out to me, I'll play again for you.
About the Kennedy assassination and the...
So, you mean to tell me that the reason for the second impeachment against Trump, January 2021, was to prevent him from releasing more secrets of government corruption, including the corrupt acts surrounding previous late President John F. Kennedy Jr.'s death? Is there someone else we know who routinely emphasized the importance of the declassification of the JFK documents? Remember this somewhat controversial figure, Austin Steinbart? Yes, he was the one. Remember, we were told that Trump holds some JFK assassination files back. When I see History Channel, I see harsh publications and potential propaganda, but still interesting. Several articles even leading up to the conclusion of Trump's term. Here we have November 2020. President Trump, please release the JFK files. Maybe these JFK files are pretty big deal after all, sort of like the moon landing. What kind of bumpy ride are we in for if Trump manages to secure a 2024 term, or if this big tech interference issue with the Biden administration blows up as it appears it's going to do, and that creates a constitutional crisis type situation where Biden gets impeached shortly after November 8th. Well, to be clear, shortly after the new Congress gets instated, so that'll be early next year. Guess we have a very important next few months to come. Stay tuned.